to our weekday KK Collision football show, joined by former Defiance coach Travis Cooper. I'm Lynn Groll, and my quarterback Tory Strock with me again here tonight. Coop, thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to visiting with you as you're out of the game for the first time in how long?
I know, it's uncharted territory for me, so thanks for having me on and being able to talk a little ball and kind of reminisce a little bit. But yeah, it's been a strange off season for me, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Lynn, this is one of the rare occasions I don't even have any questions written out.
What happened?
First time ever, because I feel like this is a guy I don't need a script for.
Oh, okay.
And I will tell you, and I've told Lynn this many times, I told my wife this, Coach, you were on a short list of guys that I loved to beat and hated losing to. And that may sound harsh. I mean that with total respect.
Yes.
Because coaching against you was kind of like coaching against Coach Beauty and some of those other coaches you run into along the way, that you're not going to trick them. You're not going to get lucky. You've got to out-prepare them, and then you've got to out-execute them. And so I knew that if we beat one of your teams, then we were doing something right. And so when we were able to do that, it was great. A lot of times we weren't, because you did a fantastic job. So kudos on a stellar career, and I mean that. And we'll talk about what may come next, but hopefully you're enjoying yourself now.
Absolutely, and it's when you said that about you hate to lose to them, and you really love it when you beat them. It goes both ways. I was, at Bryan back in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, and man, I knew that was a big game for the Bryan community, and man, it was always, I was sick to my stomach every Friday, but for that one, it was even more special than that. It was even bigger than that, because, I knew you were going to have answers to everything that we wanted to do, and I had to keep reminding myself to not outthink myself, and you got to just do what you do best and then adjust from there. But being a young coach, I was very fortunate to have to go against some really good coaches. I mean, when I went into Bryan, there were 3 state title coaches that I was going against. Actually 4, I believe. So you had Mark Emmons, you had Rex Lindgren, you had Bill Inselman, and John Downey. 4. Those are 4 guys, and I'm a wet behind the ears 27-year-old who hires a D coordinator that's even younger than me. And so the first year we went 5-5, and then that second year, we talked about the game that we had that year in 2009, and we had a phenomenal football team that year. And I was just full of piss and vinegar, and I was chomping at the bit. I was real just coming out of Jerry Beauty's tutelage, and just kind of finding my own footing as a head football coach. But man, when you looked at your schedule, and the NWL does their pre-meeting, and I'm looking and I'm seeing John Downey and Inselman and Lindgren and Emmons, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and they're not giving me any respect, pretty much. It's like who's this young one behind the ears kid? So when in 2009, when we started knocking some of those teams off, man, I tell you, it really did a lot for my career. It validated what I was doing. But in 2009, when we came over to Napoleon, and you had a good team, and we thought we were pretty good, and there had been I don't know how many times in a row Napoleon had beaten Bryan going into that year, and we just played our butts off, and we're executing, and we get towards the end of the game, and all of a sudden things start getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and I can see different looks in the kids' eyes, and it's kind of like a train that's starting to roll out of control, and you're like, no, and before you know it, you rattle off 2 scores right at the end and knock us off. But I think that it's sometimes in those losses, they're godsends, because our kids didn't know how to handle success that year. We didn't experience it very much. So we had some success, but it kind of humbled us, and I thought it kind of grounded us a little bit more, and man, it was a special year, and I always say my first playoff game was played with with Archie Griffin standing on the sideline because his son was a player for Columbus DeSales that year. So Adam was a running back, and he's standing next to Clark Kellogg because his son's a cross-country runner, and they were just hanging out down there. But, I mean, I was awestruck. You know, we went down there and we got pummeled, but great experience, and that was really kind of where my coaching, as a head coach, my coaching kind of took off from there.
You know, Coop, that team, and you summarized that game well. We won it at the buzzer, and we were good. We were really good, and I had so much respect. We couldn't block your linebackers, and we were fortunate that night, but we also made the playoffs. We ended up losing to Bishop Watterson 6-3. 2 weeks later, we played Columbus Eastmore, Archie Griffin's alma mater, in the first round, lost to Watterson, and then Watterson went on to lose to DeSales later on. And that DeSales team was scary.
They were. They're an end. I just remember because his name was Chris Rock. I'm like, this guy does not look like the comedian because he looks like a full-blown dude. But yeah, they were loaded, and we knew we were fighting. You know, back then, if you get in the playoffs, you earned it. And if you're like an 8 seed and you're going against a number 1 seed, and the tradition that they have there is pretty amazing. But I know our kids wouldn't trade it for a world, and that was the first playoff game ever for Bryan's football team ever. So, you know, I think they will always have a special place in the Bryan football history because of that. So maybe, hopefully I live long enough for them to bring us back and celebrate us maybe.
You deserve it. That was a good team.
Well, maybe I'm going to ask one question, and then I can go home and let you two guys talk the rest of the night. But I'm going to get my one in, and then I'll go home.
Go ahead. But we don't want you to leave. We don't want you to leave.
Do you know your records against each other?
I do not. I would think that he would have a little bit of a lead on me.
But only because we never lost to Bryan. Okay, 1 year, and I think you were there, Coop. We won like 24-21 on a last-second field goal by Clint Detmer, and then in 2009 it was 28-21 at the buzzer, and then I can't remember what year you went to Wauseon.
It would have been 11 was my first year, so I think maybe the one you're talking about, maybe Kleiner was the head coach. I think maybe with that was when they had that loaded class with Austin Schindler and
we beat them in the playoffs that year in 2012. They were good, and then Coop really got me a couple times at Wauseon. Okay, he did, and we got them one time at Wauseon, and I'll never forget. Coop comes over, shakes my hand, and goes, "You kicked our butts." And I go, "No, I said it wasn't." He goes, No, it wasn't. You kicked our butts." And then Coop came into Buckenmeyer Stadium a couple times and kicked ours. So I would say it's fairly even. And then at Defiance, Coop, did I get?
I think my first year was your last year as head coach.
Okay. So I was the only one in that one against you, and so I'd say it's fairly even. If I'm being honest, it's fairly even.
Is this one of those deals where you're going to pull out and never actually have the record?
I don't.
He normally does. If you know him, he asks a lot of questions he already knows the answer to.
I wish I would have, but I did not. I didn't think of it before the show. But enjoyed following both of you. I remember the one year at Buckenmeyer Stadium. I can't remember which one of you it was. I covered the game, and one of you stormed back right at the end.
That was 2009.
Well, was that the 2009 season?
Yep. We were down 21-14, and we intercepted a pass, and we actually made our hay running a jet sweep to
I remember that now.
Clint Detmer, who was real slippery and shifty, and then we ended up getting the ball back late and punched it in again. But oh my goodness, that was at DeSales playoff team that they played against. But that Bryan team was good, and that's when I knew. And then here's the thing: when he left Bryan, I thought, oh, thank goodness, I don't have to deal with him anymore. And then he goes to Wauseon, who's a traditional Napoleon opponent, you know. And
so that's why you left Napoleon? Because he came to the final.
Well, he kept following. He was like stalking me.
That's funny.
You know, but no, I always got up for games against Coop. And plus, were you class of 93?
I was 98.
Oh, you're a lot younger than me, Coop.
Yeah, I don't look like it, but I am.
No. No, and I guess, okay, I was off on the year, but we're kind of from the same generation. You know, he kind of learned from Jerry Beauty, and I kind of, Rex and Bill, and kind of cut from the same cloth, so I knew it'd be a feather in our cap if we could get him, but his teams were uber prepared, man, and I honestly hated those games. It's more fun sometimes to coach against somebody you can just kind of trick them, because you know they're not going to be prepared. And that wasn't him.
Well, we can go a lot of different ways, but before we really get into this, Coop, I want to know what has happened to our Reds.
Oh my gosh.
And are the Bears going to do anything this season?
Oh my gosh. So, yeah, the Reds, I've probably watched more baseball this year than I have because I've had football as a distraction. But man, I tell you, my wife is tired of it being on the TV and tired of me getting mad and turning it off because we just blow a lead in the last inning or something. But just frustrating. But, I'm used to it. We're used to it as Reds fans. Hopefully we can sometime figure it out. I thought maybe with getting Tito, he could find the right buttons to push with our guys. But my dad, he's a big Reds fan, and I get mad at him all the time for making me a Reds fan because it just drives me nuts to watching every game and seeing us just choke. But and the Bears, again, we're the king of the offseason if you're a Bears fan. We'll do the splashy moves in the offseason, then once the season starts, usually we become the traditional Bears. But I'm excited about this year. I mean, Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, I know some people love him and hate him, but if he can win games, I love him. So I'm hoping we can turn that thing around and can have a good NFL season.
Well, I saw you at the Buckeye game on Saturday. You're enjoying a little bit of time here in the fall off.
Yes. Yeah, it was great. It was something that me and Tory were talking, something that if I was still coaching, I would not have been able to do. And so we're kind of trying to treat this first summer here, me and my wife, just kind of doing all the things that I've always wanted to do but I haven't been able to do. So it's been great. We've been able to do a lot of traveling, and I've definitely caught up on a lot of my honey-do list. That's for sure. I've done probably more work around the house than I have in a long time. But there are times when I wake up and I feel kind of lost. I think I posted or said something on social media this summer. I think it was July, I woke up from a nightmare, and I thought that my alarm went off for practice and I didn't have my practice script ready. So I woke up in a cold sweat. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, I don't have my practice schedule done. I don't have my practice script, my plays and stuff. And then I'm like, just pump the brakes. All right, this is just a dream. But, it's so much a part of your everyday routine. And just by the way that the sky is and the way the sun's setting, it will take you instantly to that part of the football season. And so you're instantly thinking about that. When it's 2 days, you can just sense it. When it's, it's Friday night lights in the first games, and you start to see the sun setting at certain times, you think of games. So it is just really, it's just ingrained in us. And when you've been doing it for so long, you just sometimes just kind of have to shake your head and be like, well, what am I doing? What's going on? It's unique, but it's been great though. I've been able to be present. This is the thing that I say. I think I've been present at more family functions. I've been present in conversations. I've been present more in meetings at school, in my classroom, because football, it is all the time. So I'm doing things that I could function and do, I think, teaching and stuff pretty well. But my mind's other places. You've got, practice schedules and scripts and media interviews, and this kid's getting in trouble and getting, is he going to be eligible? You've got injuries, and you're checking in with the kids and their doctor's appointments, and so you're functioning, but it's always occupying such a big part of your brain. So I just feel like I've been way more present, I guess, this off season and the start of the school year.
What are you missing, and maybe what are you not missing about coaching? I know it's only been a couple weeks. Take me through that a little bit.
I think I miss the kids. I miss game planning. I miss game planning a lot. I miss calling a game, the chess match. Every week you're presented with a different challenge, and how am I going to try to exploit what they're doing? I miss that a lot. the practices when I'm leaving school and I hear the whistles and all that kind of stuff. I don't miss that a lot, especially when it's like hot and dry. And I'm like, I don't miss that part. I don't miss the drama that comes along with it. But I miss the camaraderie of my staff. I spend so much time each year with my staff, and you develop this bond and kinship and this just fun back and forth. It's kind of like having a group of big brothers, and so I miss that part. And I get to talk to some of the other coaches, and I pass them the hall and stuff, but it's different. So I do miss that part too. So I'm still kind of feeling that out. I went to a couple games that very first week. I went to the Napoleon game, and I went to watch one of my buddies, Doug Rake's coach, over at Wauseon. So that was unique, being my first time back at Wauseon, and watching him. It's definitely less stressful. And I also, I find myself critiquing the play calls, and then I'm like, that's the same thing I complained about when I was coaching, is all these people over in the stands, they all know better, and I started catching myself, I don't know what has gone into this week of preparation, so it's a week-to-week thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we brought you on because we want you to talk about this new coaching program that you come up with, and we'll get into that as the show goes on, but go ahead. Well, you're itching over there.
Well, I mean, you've taken...
Well, you didn't have any questions prepared.
No, I didn't need any, but one of the big ones I was going to ask, what do you miss the most, what do you miss the least? And you just asked him that. And, Coop, I think you do a really good job articulating what it's like in your first year out. I couldn't do it as well as you did. You talked about the way the sun's setting and just the weather and different things. You hit the nail on the head, and then you're getting my wheels turning when you're talking about you woke up in a cold sweat. Mine always was, I woke up, or I'm in a dream, and we're playing our first game, and we're kicking off, and I'm like, I didn't even put a kickoff team together. And then you're sweating, and you wake up, and you're like, wait, you're not even coaching anymore,
Yep.
So, and you may not even want to talk about this, but if you ever coach again, would you prefer to get back in as a head coach or maybe ease in as an assistant coach? Because being an assistant's a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've thought about that a lot. I mean, I had numerous offers this offseason to be an assistant someplace. I mean, I'm fortunate to have a good fraternity of coaches in the area that respect me, and it means a lot for me for them to reach out and want me to help them. But I told my players at Defiance, I told my family, it doesn't matter, I'm not going back this year, and we'll reevaluate after this year, but I really don't know. I've been an assistant a couple times in the middle of my head coaching span there. I was an assistant under Doug over at Fairview for a year with Bob Olin and Craig McCord, which was a great experience, and then I was an assistant for Coach Klein at Defiance. There are parts of being an assistant that are really nice when you know the other side of it.
Yeah.
It feels like, gosh, man, I could do this stuff in my sleep. It's not going to occupy a lot of time, but when you're wired a certain way, you're never doing enough, and you feel like you have to keep working and give everything you have and every ounce of energy you have into whatever it is that you're tasked with doing as an assistant. And I would fill that time, and I would probably do just as much as an assistant as I would a head coach. So I don't know. Then there's part of it. You want final say on certain things that can be challenging. The year that I went with Doug over at Fairview, I wasn't an OC, I wasn't a play caller, and that was hard. And then I ended up being an offensive line coach, which I had never coached offensive line in my life, and I loved it. It was just a new challenge, So I don't know. It's probably every situation's different. I would say probably at this point, if I am going to get back into it, it would be as probably a head coach. But I've got so many years in teaching now that being able to go to a different school and then be able to pay me the years and not take a huge pay cut. And it's not about pay, it's about the teaching salary is what it is. And I love Defiance. I told Coach Beauty when I resigned, if I could hit a pause button, take a year off, and no time has transpired, no seasons have transpired, I would never step down. But I know that train is going to be rolling, and I just couldn't hold them hostage. And so I love Defiance. It's always going to be like my place. That's where I've kind of cut my teeth as a coach and started my teaching career. So who knows? I don't know what the future holds, but I'm not going to say that I'm not going to get back into coaching, but I don't know. It depends on kind of the rest of the season and how it goes, and see if I get that itch and what opportunities present themselves after the season. So,
Coop, when did you feel like you might want to hit the pause button? Is it something that kind of lingered over the last couple of years? Was it something at some point last season where it hit you? And you don't even have to answer that.
No, it's a good question, and I'm glad you're asking that question, because I know that there's probably some people that have wondered that. It really was actually the year prior to when I stepped down, so 2 years ago. In the off season, I was just to the point where, and we had a great class, a great group coming back. I mean, that class was going to be, great. They were going to be veterans because they'd played a lot as a freshman and sophomores. But I was just to the point where I was just so stressed out, so just not in a good spot. I wasn't excited about going to football for a little bit. Then even that year, the wins, and I think I said this in the paper, the wins weren't enjoyable like they used to be, and they were just more of a relief. It was just like, oh, okay, we didn't stub our toe in this game. And then the losses were devastating. So I started to think, like, why am I doing this then? When we win and we see this playing through and we have success, that should be what excites you, And so I started kind of self-reflecting that year, and then I realized, I'm like, okay, I've got this group of kids that have played a lot of football under me, and to just step aside in their senior year, I'm like, I'm not going to do that. And so I got rejuvenated that summer, just, like clockwork, everything just starts happening and you get into the mode and you're good. But then it started towards the end of the season. I'm like, starting to think again, like, okay, about next year and what things are and I realized that none of those feelings all of those feelings that I was having the year before, they were still there. And they were just masked a little bit. And then once you start to reflect, it comes back, and so I was just like, it's time for me to step back and recharge. And I know that no matter what, when you step down, you're going to make some people upset. You're going to make some people happy, because they think, gosh, get that guy out of there, I'm glad we don't have to deal with that guy anymore. But, I owed it kind of to myself and to my family, and, just mental health, it's not like I was just down and out, but, I mean, it wears on you. And when you stop enjoying things that you used to enjoy, and like I said, not being present in moments where you need to be present for your family, the people that love and care about you, and it doesn't matter if you win or lose, and you're starting to, kind of not be present for those things, it's time to kind of reevaluate,
Very well said, Coach.
Did the coaching landscape change over your time from the beginning to the end?
Absolutely. I mean, the movement of coaches is like never before, and it's only going to get worse. I believe like the years of a guy being at a school for 30 years is going to be very, very rare. And I think then, you lose some mentors, that move on along down the line. And then just the game and just the things that we, just the operational things in football has changed. A lot of the things that, the way that the game was played when we first started, it's non-existent. Now we're just throwing the ball around, and then you've got these play clocks, and you've got, these different things that are going on operationally. So it's definitely changed. There's turf everywhere, and back in the day, I mean, it was like, if you played on turf, you made it pretty far in the playoffs. And those are just like little things, but I definitely think that it's definitely changed, and I think the kids have changed tremendously. I think that there's more and more asked of kids, but if you're not demanding that out of kids for your sport, you're going to fall behind. I don't think it's the right thing to do, to monopolize their time and push them and ask them to be all these different things, but you're going to fall behind if you're not. And I don't know how that gets fixed, I guess. For us, they gave us extra coaches days these last couple of years. We never even used them. We were good with the plan before, and and then they started allowing you to do stuff in May and these extra coaching days. We didn't even use them, because I thought if we could operate with what was given to us a few years ago, like, are we just going to do more just for the sake of just occupying time and putting more stress on them? Just some of those things have changed a lot, and the playoffs have been crazy, the way that they've changed that around over the years. Definitely 16 teams is way too many. Now, granted, we benefited from that a couple times because of, our league. We play a tough league, and you don't maybe get as many wins as some of these teams that are playing lesser opponents, and so, I think that's why you were getting like a 13 seed beating a 4 seed and things like that, is because there's teams that deserve to be in, but the way that everything is configured, sometimes it wasn't showing that, So yeah, there's a lot of things that have changed.
Let me take a break. I want you to elaborate on this part a little bit more for us. We'll be right back. KK Collision is a leader in the auto repair industry that has been servicing Northwest Ohio's auto needs for over 27 years. We offer a fast and reliable repair option that stands above the competition. When your vehicle enters our facility, you can be assured that you have chosen the most technologically advanced repair facility in the area. KK Collision is an automotive body and mechanical shop, as well as both a light and heavy-duty towing service located in Liberty Center. Our towing services cover Northwest Ohio and the surrounding area 24 hours a day. Are you in need of a repair estimate? Visit us anytime during business hours for a free estimate at T556 Ohio 109 on the north side of Liberty Center, or call 888-533-7801 or visit our website at kkcollision.com. Thank you to Kyle Kern at KK Collision for supporting us again this season on our football show, joined by Travis Cooper this week, having a great coach, and all the extra days that coaches get now. Has all of these extra days and time that we have given to the kids and the coaches, has it made football better?
I don't think so. Not at all. Not at all. I mean, I've always thought, and I know Tory would probably, agree, that when we had less time, I don't think we ever went in the season just saying, we're not prepared, we're not ready to go. We didn't have enough time to get ready. That's never been a case, so I don't understand why we need to just keep adding more time, because us as coaches, that's part of your job, is you're given an allotted amount of time. Your job is to get your kids prepared in that amount of time. So that's where organization, having a plan in the off season. I could make any time work. If they said we couldn't have football until August 1st, I know I would have my team ready to play week 1. Now, it wouldn't be ideal, but if I didn't know any different and have plans made for, having the days in the summer, we would adapt. Everybody will adapt. And I think that's part of our job as coaches is, okay, you give me the time that we need, and it's our job to make it work.
I've heard a lot of people tell me Ohio football has eroded because we don't have the time that Texas or Florida or South Carolina or California has. They're doing football all year, and that's why we've fallen behind those states.
My thing with that, and I think that us falling behind, is in the recruiting aspect for these college coaches, because they are in their season when we're in our season, where if they have spring ball, if teams have spring ball, they can get their assistants out on the road and they can evaluate kids and get hands-on kids. I think that spring ball is more for the colleges to be able to evaluate and get hands-on kids than it is to prepare, because I don't know about other teams, but when if I put something in April, they aren't going to remember it in August. It ain't going to happen. There's times we put something in on Monday and Thursday.
It was Division I coaches that wanted the spring ball in Ohio.
Yes, and I think when they say that falling behind, I think that's the only, maybe in the looks that our kids get, but in terms of prep for the season, I don't buy that.
Well, Coop, how many kids would you have had at spring ball? Between track and field and baseball and everything else, so it's not like Texas where a lot of those kids specialize, or Florida.
Well, baseball, spring sports in those states are over in April.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they start in February.
How many would you have had at a typical spring practice?
We ask our kids to be in everything. If you're not in baseball, you should be in track. because it's going to help you in football anyway.
Yeah.
And it's less numbers in the weight room for us, because I know they're going to get lifts for those teams anyway. So, yeah, we would have hardly any. I mean, you know how big baseball and track and field is up in this area. It really would be a moot point.
Same.
And if you are doing things, even if they can't be there, now you're putting a kid in a situation where they feel like they're getting behind, because maybe they like football, but maybe they like baseball too, and they like track. And so then now they feel like they're missing out and they're getting further behind, and it puts unneeded stress and unintended stress on the players.
Are those some of the reasons you look at teams across Ohio? The rosters are shrinking. Teams that used to have 60, 70 kids in small schools are down in the 30s or 20s. Are those some of the reasons why that is happening and why we're losing coaches like yourself or Tory and a lot of these other coaches that are very good coaches? I think both you guys should both be coaching. I know why you're not, but you're good for kids, you're good for the game, you're teaching them life lessons. Is it all of that you just discussed why we're losing players and maybe some coaches?
I mean, I think it's some of it. I think but it's a machine, a massive machine that I think if you had the answer to it, you could be a rich man, or you could go on a speaking tour, because there's so many variables, and every school size is different. So at a bigger school, maybe it's not the pull of other sports and things like that. But the travel ball. I mean, I got nephews and nieces that, they're playing between January and August, September, they're playing like 100 games. And it's not just that, but then there's all these other travel leagues and all these different things that are going on with all these different sports that, the kids are burnt out. Us as coaches get frustrated when we have something scheduled and 3/4 of your team is not there for some reason, or you've got a 7-on-7 schedule, but then they also have a game and this travel team that's playing in Toledo, and it just gets to be frustrating because it's a yearly thing. So to put your finger on one thing, I really don't know. But I also think that, sometimes football gets kind of the bad rap because of social media and different things, talking about injuries and long-term effects, and I think some of that plays a role in it. But gosh, I don't know. But you're right, the numbers seem to be going down everywhere, which is very, very bad, and I think for our society in general, we can't see football go away, because I think football is a big part of who we are and what we want our people to be, and our young men, our workers to be. And it teaches so many life lessons that it doesn't, to the lay person that just thinks about football as, it's just for meatheads and just beating each other up and pounding their head against each other and stuff. No, it's about getting up and going to work when you don't want to go to work. It's showing up. It's conducting yourself with class and treating other people with respect, looking people in the eye when you talk to them, shaking hands, cleaning up after yourself at team meals, cleaning your bus. There's so many of those lessons that even the kids don't realize that they're learning them, because it happens every single day. But when they get done with football, it's ingrained in them. It's just their habits. And I think that's one of the things that football has that other sports don't. We spend more time with our kids because of two-a-days and the length of our seasons and just our off-season weight program and stuff, that people forget that it is and for a lot of the kids that we have, they don't have that anywhere else. And the number of kids, and that's one of the most satisfying things for me about being a head coach, is seeing a kid that was really in a bad situation coming into high school, and you knew that football was the best thing for them, and they stick around. And I always say, every day that goes by that they're in our program, it's one day that they have to mature and be able to think for themselves and make choices for themselves. And by the time they get to be seniors, they can make decisions on their own. Even if their home life is terrible and they don't have a good mentor or anything, every day that they're in our program until they graduate is one day closer for them being able to make that good decision on their own. And then you see all the fruits of that labor when all of a sudden you see that this person has kind of broken this cycle, and they come back and you see that they're just this good standing citizen that you thought was in trouble, and maybe just was going to be an afterthought and go the wrong direction. And so that's why football is important, and that's why I think that people shouldn't push their kids from playing football, and they should promote it. There's risks and injuries, but I watch every other sport, and there's injuries and risks and serious things that I see videos on all the time. Trust your kids, trust your coaches trust the coaches to mentor those kids, and if you have a good coach, you have a good staff, it'll work wonders for your kid, and hopefully more kids keep playing.
Have you noticed more kids being burnt out later on in your career, Coach?
A little bit. There's a lot of pressure to perform. There's so much social media and videos of everybody's playing, and it's all about clicks and highlights and things like that. So I think there's some internal pressure that comes along with that. But in terms of the time that they're being asked to put in, I mean, I go back to this all the time. I think there was I forget what it was. I think they wrote a paper about it or something when I was at Defiance, my first years as an assistant. I think it was Graham Wagner. I don't know if you remember Graham Wagner.
Yeah.
So Graham was a three-sport stud, okay? But they went through and they basically tallied every minute that he spent at a sport throughout the whole year. And it would blow your mind. And then he would say, I wouldn't change it for one bit. I wouldn't change one bit of it. That's where I would want it to be anyway. So, I don't think that we're asking any more than, because I guarantee you, I know Jerry asked a lot out of Graham Wagner. I mean, back then we were doing 3 days.
Yeah.
And then it was basketball with Coach Lehman, and baseball with Tom Held. They were occupying his time, but he would testify that I wouldn't do it any other way. I wasn't burnt out, but now everybody kind of falls back on these crutches of saying that they're burnt out. And again, it's a different time. I think there's more outside noise that can play into that, especially with just everything's different. I'm getting old, I know, because I start talking about back in the good old days, and it just happened in a blink of an eye because I thought I was actually fairly young a couple years ago. Man, I feel really old now, but I think every kid's different. But I think that there's a lot of extraneous things that kind of led to people saying that a lot.
How do we get more kids out for football? How do we build these rosters?
Oh man, personally, and this is bad to say as a football coach, I mean, I think for football, I think we should lay off of football until junior high, 7th grade. Start with 7th grade. I know the MAC does it, and it doesn't hurt their football performance and their numbers. It's less impacts that the kids are going to take at an age when they don't have probably the muscle structure and the development. Now, will that help our numbers? I don't know. But I think that that's part of it. I think, for example, now I've got family members. I got a nephew that doesn't play football because he had a bad experience as a 4th grader. He was thrown in at a point when he was not physically ready to do that, and we lost him for good. And the same things happened at just in the high school, walking through the halls, different kids throughout the years that they had a bad experience down there in those lower levels, and it scared them away. Now, maybe they would have had the same experience as 7th or 8th grader, but I have a feeling, just knowing the development of those kids, they're a way different kid in 7th grade than they were in 4th grade. So I think that's part of it. And then I just think that, I really don't have another answer for that. I don't know. I've tried, I think if you do have youth football, it's got to be less about giving the most physically mature kid the football every single play, because by the time he gets to high school, everybody's going to pass him. They always talked about, it was always kind of like the kid that's got hair under his arms, he's the one that we're going to give the ball to. And,
sweet.
Yes, and then by the time you get to freshman year, all these kids that were way behind him have passed that kid, and so it's too much about winning, I think, at that level than it is about having fun and teaching them the right ways to do things. So I think getting good coaches in the youth levels is another step in the right direction.
I can tell you that design is working here at Liberty Center. They do some flag and just kind of run around and have fun in the young grades, and geez, you see their numbers here.
Yeah, and actually I talked to some people in Defiance a couple years ago, and we have the framework, we had the framework for instituting a flag league where it was more instructional versus just running around and trying to grab flags and stuff, and actually teaching them some of the real basic fundamentals like stances and how you hold a ball and throwing a ball and proper catching the ball technique and that kind of stuff. And I think that that would be definitely beneficial versus no football. But yeah, believe me, I've thought about that because our numbers have been down. At every place that I've gone, the numbers have not been where they probably need to be. And so I've thought about that every year I've been a coach.
Yeah, we never had football prior to 7th grade, growing up in Liberty Center, and I'm like you, Coach, I'm a little bit older, but I just remember how stinking eager we were to finally get to put on the pads. And I think sometimes people are afraid of losing those young kids. Like if you don't expose them to football in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, well, you're going to lose them to soccer or whatever else, And so, like, we better get them while we can. And so, but we never had that. And we were hungry as ever when we finally got to be 7th graders. And I think that's what you see at Marion Local and some of those MAC schools, chomping at the bit. Did you play youth football at Fairview?
Yeah, I played 5th and 6th grade football.
So we didn't have that.
Yeah, and so, I was fast. So I was running for fear for 2 years. That's part of the reason why I was as fast as I was, is because I didn't want to get hit, but if I ran fast enough, they weren't going to get to me anyway. So that's kind of how I operated. But yeah, it's something that I think everybody's battling and fighting, and I think every community is a little different as well, because I know that there's some youth football programs in different communities that are really, really successful. So I don't think it's like a cookie cutter type thing. I think it's unique, but there's definitely needs to be a thought about what do we do to get our numbers out, keep our numbers, and celebrate our game.
Coop, let me ask you this, because, I do this, I've been doing this with Lynn. I've been fortunate to be doing this with Lynn for 4 years. People hear me enough. I think it's great to have you on here. I think you've got so much wisdom and insight to offer. So there's always young coaches, young assistant coaches, young coaches watching this. And how would a young assistant coach who aspires to be a head coach, how would they know if they should take a job or not? What are the things that make a job a good job or maybe not such a good idea?
Man, that's a great question. Man, I don't have a good answer right off the top of my head. Because it's so different, I think back to some of my first interviews for jobs. I remember I went into interview at Wauseon right after Andy Schaefer. And
I ran into him in the BBC too, for crying out loud. He was stalking me, man.
Yeah. And so I remember going into that, and it was intimidating because it was one of the few interviews where they sat me down out in front, and I was far away from them, and they had this just big curved table, and it's almost like they got a spotlight on you, and they're just firing questions. And you didn't know kind of how it went. And I know I didn't ask the right questions to get my answer of what's a job I would want or not. But that's where having a mentor and somebody you trust that's in the game is really vital, I think, to run it by them. Because if the mentor coach really has your best interests in mind, they're going to shoot you straight. And that's what it was with Coach Beauty. Every time I interviewed for different jobs, because I interviewed for probably 3 or 4 before the Bryan job came open, and I turned down 2 of those other jobs because from talking with him, knowing what he looked for, and knowing kind of what he knew about their traditions, it helped a lot for a young guy. But looking back on it, I think the administration is a huge piece. How much turnover is there in the administration? Are the people that are going to be hiring you, are they going to be around for a year or 2, because I was very fortunate to, especially at Wauseon, Mark Robinson, Bill Gase, Keith Leatherman, they were all in there when I got hired, and Mark had been there for a long time. Bill Gase is a legend, he was there forever. Keith had been there forever and is still there now and going to be their new superintendent. So I think that continuity is huge for a coach to know, but then also kind of know, what do they have coming? What's their tradition look like? What's the community expectation? What would other coaches in their league say about their kids? I think that's a good question in a way that you could, of course, if they don't want you to coach in the league and they want to go against you, they're going to say, you know what, you don't want to go there, they're terrible. But I think it's kind of like doing a reference check when you're doing, interviewing candidates for a job. You want to hear what people that are on the other side or on the inside, maybe what they say about them, and so but again, every situation is different. I've got fortunate to have some coaches, some kids, younger guys that are looking to get into that coaching realm, and so I do feel like I'm doing a little bit more mentoring with that now. My nephew is first-time OC out in Montana, just had his first game last week for a team that hadn't won in the last 2 years, and so trying to help him be prepared and not let the moment be too big for him, and then I've got some former players that played for me that are now getting to that age where they're starting to look into coaching, so, I just talked to, I remember Zach Robinson, our quarterback, Wauseon stud, first team All-Ohio. He's a doctor now, and I just was talking to his mom, and she wants to get the book or my thing because his dream job, even though he's a doctor and he does all this stuff in physiology, all this kinesiology, all this stuff, that he wants, his dream job is coaching. So I said, well, I'd absolutely help him. He'd be phenomenal at it. But yeah, let's transition into my career into starting to try to mentor some of these guys like me, and hopefully they can be a 27-year-old coach in a league where there's 4 state coaches, state title coaches in the room, and they can hold their own.
What was it like for you when you started in the NWL against those guys? When you went up against them the first time, was it awe, or were you nervous? Or
like I said, I think the biggest thing was I felt like I had to reinvent the wheel, that I had to just come up with this groundbreaking stuff. The only way I can beat them is to trick them to do this, that, and the other. I think that was kind of the biggest misconception. It's intimidating, and you know when you've earned respect. I'll never forget when I can pretty much tell the game when I gained Rex Lindgren's respect. I remember it like it was yesterday. Same thing with Coach Downey, who was only coaching a couple years maybe before he retired when I was at Bryan. You know when you've earned the respect. Coach Inselman, after I was done at Wauseon, there was a time where he had me come over and I did an offensive clinic for his staff, him and his staff, for 3 hours, and that meant as much to me as anything, because that's somebody that I'd held at a high regard. He wants to try to learn something from me, and I mean, that was mind-blowing, Coach Lindgren, after one of the games, we had pounded him pretty good at Wauseon, and there's no place for you to go as coaches there. You're standing out there, just kind of amongst everybody, and he pulled me aside, and he's like, I tell you what, he's like, I want you to win the league. He's like, you kicked our butt, and he's like, I just thought you guys played phenomenal, all of your team. If there's anything I can do the rest of the season, anything you need, I'll be glad to help you, take it a long ways, And so things like that, just when I remember being a 27-year-old at the first meeting for the NWL coaches meeting and being so intimidated and feel like I didn't really have any of their respect, to get those moments when they kind of give you your flowers and pat you on the back and say, good job, young man, that's what means a lot. And so I've never forgotten that, because when I've gone against some younger coaches in my career, then I try to go out of my way. When they do something really well or do something, have a good game plan, I try to let them know that, because I know how much that meant to me, and I don't know if it's going to hold as much weight for them, with me saying it, but, I feel like that's kind of giving it back, I think that's why the coaching fraternity is so awesome.
I think I probably asked you this before, but at Defiance, you have Jerry Beatty, you have Tom Held, coach with both of those guys.
Yep.
And then you have Kirk Lehman, too.
Yep. Yeah.
Tell me about that experience.
Oh, is unbelievable. I mean, if you had a boy in high school at that point in time, you knew your kid was getting coached and is going to be a phenomenal young man, because you can't play for those 3 guys and not have the utmost character, the utmost mentoring. They put out some of the best kids probably that Defiance has ever put out, because they go from football with Jerry to basketball with Kirk, and then from there to Coach Held. And I mean, I don't know how you can argue with those 3 coaches, all state champion coaches, just a wealth of knowledge. I don't think kids realize how good they got it if they got to play for those 3.
At the same time, though, you have to go up against basketball and baseball at Defiance.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And cross country.
Yep. Yeah, they were a juggernaut, Coach Mauser, and and
they left Toby out of that. Yeah.
Those three sports, though, we had a tremendous run of athletes that played all three in that time. I think L.J. Helton, remember L.J. Helton? Yeah. I believe he was first team all-league in all three of them, and maybe state mention in two or three of them. I mean, and it didn't hurt him playing all those and playing for demanding coaches. But yeah, it was kind of like you kind of fell into your hat if you played all three of those sports. And I think we've talked about doing something special as a athletic department for the kids that play all three sports to keep that happening, because we've got so many kids that are just playing one or the other, they drop one, and but man, back in those days, there were some phenomenal three-sport athletes.
Coop, as you look, I'm always talking to Lynn on our podcast and stuff about who some of my favorite young coaches are out there. You can see guys that are developing. I think David Dominic at Archbold, he's been one of my favorites. And you may not want to answer this because you're afraid to leave somebody out, but I'd like to hear maybe your short list of coaches that you look at. They don't necessarily even have to be young, but coaches you look at from the outside and say, man, he does a nice job. He does a nice job. Give me 5, 6, 7, 8 of those guys.
Yeah, that's a good question. And really in the WBL, which, in my more recent time, that's, the ones that I know the most. There's been a lot of turnover there. A young coach that I think he does a good job. I talk to him actually quite frequently because he coaches at Elida now, but he's no longer in it because of the burnout and the other things, but he's still an assistant. Ryan Reindell, who was at Bath, I thought he was a really good coach. I thought he got kind of a rough end of the deal there.
At Bath?
At Bath. He's at Elida now as an assistant coach for Kyle Harmon. And, I thought he was a really good one. I thought, there's some guys like the upper echelon guys in the NWL, those legend guys like, Ken Schreiner is one of my favorite coaches of all time. That dude is just such a good dude and such a great coach and a great just X's and O's guy. And he's definitely not younger than me, but and he wouldn't appreciate me saying that, but he would probably give me a good hard time for that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys in the GMC. I mean, my buddy Doug. I mean, I think Doug's one of the best coaches in the area, to be honest. I think there's nobody that works harder than him. He's cut from the same cloth as me, and he's kind of the passing guy, and I'm kind of the running guy. And so we do a good job of complimenting each other and helping each other in those ways. But there's not a better game planner than him. And I think that, he's having a good season, and I think he's one of the best in the area. Scott State, I think he gets a short end of the stick sometimes. He's a phenomenal coach, one of my former assistants. Again, cut from the same cloth, great coach. David Dominic's one of my buddies too. I really like David and talking with him. I could go on and on and on because I have a good relationship with Casey Moeller too. And it's not easy taking over for Rex Lindgren. And he's done amazing things. And so I'm really proud of him too and excited for him. Man, there's just a lot. There's a lot. Even Dirk Connor, we used to scrimmage each other when he was at BG and I was at Wauseon, and seeing him go to Perrysburg and have a good thing going there. But man, it's a great fraternity. I know I'm leaving people out. Yeah. Please don't be offended if I didn't mention your name. I've got so many good friends in the coaching ranks, and there's very few that I've gone against that I think, man, that guy is not very good. And if they weren't very good, I probably have forgotten them. But they're not the ones that I forgot to mention their names. But yeah, it's to reflect is kind of fun at this point because it's really kind of the first time I've done it. So pretty cool.
This is a Tory question, but this is a fun question that we like to ask. You lock all the Western Buckeye League coaches in a room. Who is coming out of there?
Oh my gosh.
Battle Royale.
Oh man.
It can only be one.
Our pick. You want to know our pick?
Who is that?
Ken Schreiner.
That's the first person that came to my mind.
Now, he's not going to go 10 rounds.
No.
Can he just go in there and...
I think, you know what, it's definitely, I know he's got some bad knees, and he's got a lot of college, wear and tear on that body, but I think it's got to be Shriner. I mean, I think he's just got to be strategic, and he's got to be cautious of when he expends his energy. But when he does, they're going to feel
Rick could go in there and go at Ken and just really go at him, but is he going to knock him down? And he could just wear himself out.
What if Ken got his meat hooks on?
But if he gets his meat hooks on Red, it's over.
It's over.
Now, I would say, I didn't even think, Rit's a little bulldog, and Rit's got some strength there, so I think, I don't know if his stamina is great either. He's also very hairy, so Rit is slippery, so he's kind of like a gorilla, and I think he could it'd be interesting though.
I'm trying to think of some of the WBL coaches I don't know, like you would, like Salina, and I don't know Frank Russell at Bath, so I can't speak on them, but
I don't think any of them would. Brendan Bader's at Salina, and he's not a big dude. Like, I mean, he's a solid guy, but he's not, like Kim Shriner size. Then we got Moyer at Walpaw. Ken's coach is not a big guy. Kyle at Elida's not a big guy. Trying to think, St. Mary's, you got Bo Fry. He's younger as an athlete, but I still think it's probably Ken Shriner. or Rit, the gorilla.
Isn't it a great question, though, Coop? We love asking that.
Now, I will tell you a true story. I was at a fantasy football draft this weekend, and Andrew Mickey was there, and Andrew was talking about the GMC Battle Royale that you proposed.
That's because we picked him.
See,
he plays that clip for his kids.
Yes, his head just got bigger and bigger and bigger. But as soon as I saw him, it didn't take long, and he was talking about him winning the GMC Battle Royale.
Could he take Big Hale?
We talked about that, and it was kind of the same situation as Coach Shriner. I think the stamina and the elusiveness is not there, but if they get within the radius, it's over. Because Big Hale would win. If he got his meat hooks on him, he would win. There's no doubt about that. And Doug was sitting next to me, and Doug said he didn't want any part of either of them.
So we can throw Doug on the mix.
Yes.
That is good. I love that question.
It is a good question.
Okay, you're going into a game preparing for it. Who were some guys that you just hated preparing for because you knew it was going to be a rock fight and hard to beat them?
Players?
Coaches.
Oh, gosh. I mean,
Now, I know you coach in the WBL, and you could say that every week.
Yeah.
It's a different animal.
Yeah. Man, I'm going to go to the NWAL because in the WBO, there's been a lot of turnover, and I don't like preparing for any of them, to be honest. Those are all tough ones. It's the same thing in the NWL, but, Bill Inselman, it's tough to scheme. Rex / Coach Moeller. We were fortunate to have, when I was at Wauseon, we did have some pretty good success against Liberty. For some reason, we always played them really well. But you couple the physicality with the scheming, and it was always a real challenge. Those two are definitely, and Archibald, Wauseon, that's our big rival, and so that was always a tough one. David, like I said, David earned his stripes real quick. He took over, and I'm thinking, oh, good, Coach Downey, I don't have to worry about that pedigree, and it didn't take long after him. Brian Miller. And Brian Miller is a great friend of mine, too, in terms of, we still talk, and one of the greatest guys, and a good dude, and I hate preparing for him, preparing for David Dominic. So those guys would all be ones that I would say.
Coop, I want to go back to what you said. Now, the easy answer is you got to have really good players, or you don't have a chance, but give us a couple of keys why you were able to compete and beat Liberty Center at times, aside from some outstanding players that you did have.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think some of it's just the mental warfare. You know, it's the belief, it's the creating the belief, and I think owning your game plan and really showing your confidence in it, it gives the kids something that they can latch onto, and they truly believe we're going to be put in a position where we can win this game. I think that, along with just the preparation, when you work the kids as hard as you can work them, and they know that you've really busted their rear end and all the preparation, I think that there's some confidence that grows from that. Because all you got to say is, do you remember, us doing these 25-yard bear crawls over and over and over again, and how bad that sucked, and how fun is this? We're going to go play a game, and a lot of times it'd be like, I guarantee you they're not doing this, and maybe they were, but I think it's just creating confidence in your kids and making them battle tested mentally as well, so that they can handle the ebbs and flows of the game, and that when the crunch time comes at the end of the game, they've got enough in the gas in the tank to still perform, and they also, between the years, aren't still defeated.
That's a great answer, Coop. I love it.
Yeah. I asked Tory this question, I think Saturday morning or maybe Friday's broadcast, because you called the plays. Mm-hmm. You get into a play and you see the defensive alignment. Do you know, I know you were always on the field, but do you know at that point if it's going to work or it's not going to, if your kids execute the play correctly?
Oh, yeah. And there's more of that now going on, too, where there's a lot of check with me stuff. We did some different things where it was check with me, or we had the ability to flip the play. So there was definitely more of that goes on. But, I was very fortunate, too. I mean, when you have a kid like Brogan Castillo, I don't know the number of times that there was a play called and I see them line up and I'm like, oh my gosh, they have got one more than we can block. But then a kid like Brogan, he'll just run through them and go for 30 yards and makes you look really, really good. So players can offset some of that a little bit too, but I do think that nowadays, being able to check plays is a luxury, and that's easier with a veteran team, and that's one of the things when you have a new youthful team that you don't have that luxury of doing. Sometimes that can bite you, but yeah, as a coach, it stinks when they line up. It's like, did I give away my play call, or why are they lined up like that? That's not what they've shown at all this year, but yeah, definitely.
That's
good
stuff.
Before we get into his program,
Yeah.
That's what we brought him here for, and we're an hour and 15 minutes in, and we haven't even got into that.
I know, but I love hearing from...
But this is part of the reason why we should buy what do you call it, a digital program code?
It really is. It's kind of like a digital toolbox. It's really, and I've had numerous people, because it does, the image looks like a book, but it's really just kind of like a handbook. It's kind of you flip to the section that you're looking for and just see kind of some basic things. It's not going to be some groundbreaking thing, but it's all the details of everything that I do in every aspect of my whole calendar year. Planning-wise, organizational-wise, what's my format for my parent meeting? What's my format for my staff meeting? What's my install plan? Talking about rules and expectations and how you go in when you take over a program or you're trying to change the trajectory of a program, the key benchmarks that you've got to hit and why. I also put in there, I've got templates for a bunch of different things in terms of leadership. Things that I've used in the past with teams to create leaders. I know most coaches are struggling to find natural leadership in kids. What I did, a program that I found that I used and was great. Some of those Wauseon teams that were great, those leaders went through those classes with me. Anything you can think about in terms of football, I kind of lay it out there. Even templates, my practice plans for given weeks. Talking about with players, what are some things that you can do for fundraising? What are some things and ideas and things you can go to? What are some things that you do with your kids in terms of community service to get your community to buy in? Different ideas with that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit of everything. And I think that it's something where, and I always tell people, when I would go to clinics with Coach Held, Coach Beauty, they would always say, if you could get one thing from the clinic that you could implement this year on your team, then it was worth it. And I'm pretty confident that in that you're going to find some little things that you're going to be able to implement into your program, whether you're a new coach, which I think being a new coach, you're going to get a lot from it, but even if you're a veteran coach, I really do think that you're going to get some things, some ideas that are going to help you. I've got some ideas on maximizing practice time in terms of scout teams, things that we've done just the last few years that have been really, really helpful that I wish we would have done earlier. Just little things that are going to make your life easier. And even if you have a plan for a certain thing and you think that it's worked well, it's a different set of eyes from 22 years of looking at it, and it might be something that you can add. I know that if I looked at it from somebody else, if I could get this from another veteran head coach, I guarantee I could find lots of things that I would want to try and implement in my program to either take it to the next level, or if I was starting out as a young coach and aspiring to maybe be a head coach, it would be a great tool to have, and that's why some of my former players, like I said, they've gotten it. My nephew, who's a first-time offensive coordinator in Montana, he got it. He's using it and asking good questions and stuff. So I just thought this spring I had a lot of free time on my hands, and I thought, I don't have to worry about hiding some of this stuff from other people, and it's just my little way of just being able to kind of provide something, and if it's good for people, great. If it's not, it's not bad either, because if I get back in it, I've got everything right down, and I got my own little handbook where I can kind of look back and see, how did I do it this way, and it's just kind of a little tool that I just decided to make, and hopefully some coaches decide to give it a try.
How can they get
Good question. I posted it on my Facebook and Twitter, so if they're not with me on those, they aren't seeing it. I know you reposted it, so if I can maybe get you to repost that. The website's kind of long to purchase it, but it is, let's see here. It's winningedge43.gumroad.com. So winningedge43, all one word, .gumroad.com. And that'll take you right to it. It's got kind of the layout of everything. It's broken up into sections and chapters. And then there's some extra things that I've added in there as well, bonus things that I've gotten questions from some others about things that weren't in it that I've added to that now. So that's all available in there now.
Can you continue to add to it, Coop?
Yeah, I have to republish, and that's the other thing is if somebody purchases and there's another edition or you have a question about something, I've got my information on there. Contact me, and I would be glad to add or clarify anything that maybe is in there. Like I said, it's all about me just trying to help other people, and I didn't want to go the actual physical book route, and I didn't want to do like the phone consultations and these different things that could be done. I thought it's just quick and easy. I would have liked something like that versus something else, but there is a way for them to contact me if there's any gray areas that maybe they want clarification on.
Coop, if I'm a young coach, I'm in the state of Indiana, and I bought this. I bought it. I've got your contact info, and I find myself emailing you or texting you a couple of times a week. Are you okay with that, or are you going to get to a point where you're like, listen, this isn't part of the deal?
I don't know, because I haven't got bombarded like that yet. I don't know. I don't think that I would probably get to that point. Or maybe don't get back, right away. Emails, I'm really good at getting back to people. Yeah. It's one of those deals where I get the notifications all the time, and I return emails quick. And so I don't think that would be a case, but if it is, then I would just have to politely just say,
or you adjust your fee structure, and you can have this much access to me for, more of a fee. Got to monetize it.
Or after 3 contacts, contact Strock at
That's my email address. He knows it. Coop, you're right.
Was it .com or .org?
.org. But he clarifies. He got Strock at Aries. He nailed it.
Well, I can vouch for you because I talk to a lot of coaches, and always the common theme is Travis Cooper is one of the best coaches, not just in this area, but anywhere. And you can speak to that too, Coach, because you coached against him, and your words hold more value than mine do.
Well, I'm telling you, there's a reason. I did. I wanted to beat Coach Cooper as bad or worse than anybody I ever coached against, and I mean it. Part of that is he's such a stinking competitor. Okay, and I'm a competitor. And I'm a sore loser. I hate it, and I know how competitive he is, and I just didn't want to lose to him. And then I also knew how prepared they were going to be, and I meant what I said earlier. I knew if we were able to win, that it was a feather in my cap personally and professionally, and my program's cap, because they're not country clubbing it wherever he was coaching, I'm telling you right now. And then there were times where they beat us, and it eats your pride a little bit to admit this as a coach, but there were a couple times where Coach Cooper beat us, and I look in the mirror and try to be honest and go, you know what, he flat out outworked me. I know he did. Because of some of the answers he had, and some of the answers maybe I didn't have. And so then the next year when you play him, you're going, that ain't going to happen again. And so what I would say about Coach Cooper is he raised the bar. For any league he's ever coached in, NWAL and WBL, he's raised the bar in the profile for those leagues. And if I were a young coach, and I mean this, if I were a young coach getting into it, I'd get his stuff. I would get his stuff in a heartbeat. In fact, if I ever coached again, I'm not kidding you, I'd get his stuff. Because even if I look at a lot of it and say, yeah, we did that, there's going to be some nuggets that I go, oh my goodness, yeah, I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean it.
Coop, thank you so much for visiting with us.
Thanks, man.
Always good spending time with you, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, buddy.
Always great.
Yeah.
You guys do such a great job, and like I said, I'm just glad you guys were able to ask me to come over and be able to talk some ball and reminisce a little bit. Sorry, probably kept you guys a little long.
We probably kept you longer than we should have.
That was our pleasure, I can tell you that.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much, and thank you all for everything you've given to football.
Thank you.
You've been outstanding in the way that you have mentored kids, and valuable part of all the communities you've been a part of, Coop, over the years.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Thank you very much. Next week, we'll be back on Monday, 1993 NWL season. Corey Griggs from Wauseon will be here. Keith Kern from Liberty Center, who you played with.
One of my old teammates.
And I'm not sure who the Montpelier guys that are coming, but there'll be Corey Griggs and a few other Wauseon guys working on. Chris Ward, is he coming next Monday?
I got to reach out to Wardy, the bus.
Okay. He's in Fremont, right?
The bus is in Fremont.
Could get him and Keith Kern, and we'll find out who the Montpelier guys are. September 15th, Mark Emmons. September 22nd, 125 years of Defiance football. October 1st, Tim Beckman. October 6th, Columbus Grove Military. October 13th, 2005 Patrick Henry Football State Championship, and then our final show, October 20th, and we're working on the guys for that day.
He's a trooper.
Yeah, that's a pretty darn good list right there.
All I ask him to do is get the bus.
He lines them up.
Just need the bus.
I don't know if the bus will make the trip from Fremont, but we can. There's other options too. But I'm gonna try to get the bus.
Okay.
He'll do it. He'll do it
for you, right?
He'll do it for me.
Perfect.
Plus, he's got family over here, man.
Yeah.
You know, Wardy cut his teeth here in Tigertown.
Yeah. Thank you to Kyle Kern at KK Collision for supporting us. We'll be back next Monday. Have a great week, everybody.